welcome in live to WNN's coverage of today's presidential and vice presidential debates. We're just 4 days away from the general election here at Westside High School. It's been a long month, about 2-month process for this campaign, and we're down to the final two. Min Nguyen and Cade Preister each getting their respective nominations from their parties. Saw the convention last week. We thought we might see a little bit of back and forth between Cade and Jimmy, but Cade ran away with a couple late votes both in California and Florida. And another big thing going into this general election, how can California and Florida go going forward? It's going to be a big thing we're going to talk about here later on. First up, we're going to talk about key points. Specifically, we're going to look at the Democratic side, talk to our Democratic analyst, Luke Steiner. And Luke, your key points here today, I think, are really centered around how can the Democrats keep their consistent footing here in this one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Democrats have the lead here. It's a numbers game at this point, and the Democrats are in the lead. I think, especially with Cade's winning, I feel like he's almost got a guaranteed win here right now. I would not be saying the same if it was some of the other candidates. The Stacey campaign, I don't think, would have secured the position as well as I think the Cade Preister campaign will. So yeah, what I'm looking for today is really what do they have. I want the candidates to speak about what they have against their opponents. Being specific on, I'm better than this candidate for this reason, to really emphasize why they should win the position, and also consistency within their issues. I think the Preister campaign has had weak points where the issues he's speaking on are not always consistent, and I think that consistency with what he's talking about and his plans will be key for gaining that extra support that's not just his crowd support, as well as answering all questions posed. I've noticed that the Nguyen campaign is sometimes lacking in answering the questions posed, and I would really like to see a fair debate where there's no dodging of questions, and they're answering questions consistently.
Yeah, I feel that same thing as well. I think a big thing here for this one, looking at last year compared to this year, of course, there's a lot of drama just in the VP debate last year with originally a Democrat, Rachel Tonnage's a primary person or primary nominee to start off with. She lost, of course, to Aiden Karp, and she went over to the Republican side to be Lenchowski's VP, and that was a big move back and forth, and it really stirred up a lot of different things throughout that VP debate. But specifically looking at the VPs here today, I mean, two females being a part of it, which is something that we have not seen, which I think is something to really talk about, and I think is, I don't want to say a moderate point that both groups are trying to go to, but I think it's definitely a piece in progress that needs to be acknowledged.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a smart move by both candidates, especially the Nguyen campaign. I think he had some issues in his campaign running that made a couple comments to some other candidates that were considered sexist and really offensive comments. And so I don't know if that was a move that he really, the VP was really who he wanted, or if it was more of a move forward looking good to kind of save himself from some of those comments he made earlier in this campaign. But yeah, I think it's a great move by both candidates.
Yeah, really both sides, I think, have been, the biggest thing we've noticed throughout all of these nominations, throughout the entire primary, is that these two are the most liked and the most known and the most biggest factors that have grown their presence, not just throughout these debates, but throughout the Twitter world that we've seen throughout a lot of these different areas as well. It's been big for them. I think it's a big reason why they're here, standing here today in some big moments. So looking now at the Republican side, here with Republican analyst Will Christiansen, and Will, I mean, for you, there's a lot of movement that Min is going to have to be able to work back. And I think his move recently has been really just be able to try to find those moderate voters and be able to find some Democratic voters as well in this one. And I think, his piece to that has been being able to find as many open Democrats he can find on his cabinet.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest thing for the Min campaign, is to attract these moderate votes and maybe the people that are on the fence of whether they want to vote Republican or Democrat. It's always going to be the race to the middle for the general election. So I think that's Min's biggest task for today's debate, is to attract as many undecided voters as possible.
So with your key points as well to talk about here, I mean, the biggest states I think easily are going to be how can California come down to one way or the other. Florida is going to be a big thing to talk about as well for the Republicans, but specifically looking at California, I mean, a lot of different pieces running around California. Can voter turnout consistently be as big as they've been trying to get? But specifically looking at California, what is the biggest piece for men to be able to bring that one home?
Well, I mean, always policy is going to be the biggest thing for men, but I think a lot of it comes down to public appeal. There's been a lot of negative press around the Win campaign lately, and I think that's something that needs to be they need to focus on taking steps in the right direction and saying the right things and talking to the right people. I think that's what they need to put a focus on to win California.
So real quick, we'll get into some speakers here today, talk a little bit about both campaigns, some people on both the campaign staff for each of these two different groups, and get a little bit more insider perspective. Now we're going to talk with Luke Steiner. Of course, you're going to be talking with Vice President presidential nominee, and Samantha Manhart, of course, originally a candidate to be both a national chair, was a state chair for New Hampshire, and Luke, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you've gone through a lot of different roles, ran for a lot of different roles throughout this campaign. So right now, do you think is this the role you're happiest with, being Pricer's vice president nominee, or do you think you would have been more satisfied with the role of DNC or as a candidate for president?
No, this is definitely the position I would be most satisfied in. And when Cade asked me, I was, flattered, and he told me that he would like me to be his vice president because of how well he thought I did in the Democratic National Chair debate. So I think that my former positions and ways I put myself out there did lead me here today.
So how's your campaign feeling going into this debate? I mean, obviously you're up against a tough opponent, one that I'm predicting is really going to attack your candidate today. How are they feeling as far as confidence in their answers and also just how they're going to combat the attack that is the Win campaign?
Well, I'm really confident going into today, and I know Cade is too. He's gotten some, insight from different people, me, Jack, and he's even asked Jimmy to sort of help him out with some of his policies that he, felt like he could know more about. So he's got a lot of different people rooting for him, and yeah, he's really confident.
Speaking of the Stacey campaign, I mean, obviously, I know that was a tough battle to get Stacey to hand over the delegates for nomination. But you said he's helping you guys out now. So do you think that it's going to be an easy transition to get all of Stacey's supporters to the Cade campaign and really secure that position? Because really, that's majority of the Democrats were either for Stacey or for Pricer. So if he has those votes, he has a good chance at securing the nomination. Do you think is it going to be a smooth transition for all of your supporters, or are some of them still frustrated with the results of the primary?
I think it's going to be a super smooth transition. I'm over here, and that, out of anyone, I feel like I would have been the most loyal to Jimmy, but no, I'm totally in it for Cade, and Jimmy is too. I think it'll be an easy win.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So now we'll look at the Republican side of things. Our analyst Will Christiansen once again talking with the vice presidential nominee for the Win campaign, Caitlin McGee.
So Caitlin, welcome to the show. What steps have you and your team been taking in preparation for this event?
We've really been just working together on my debate with Samantha and getting me prepared, and we've been talking with Min about just what he's going to go over and how he's feeling. I know I've met with Peter and Min a couple times, maybe daily or every couple days with this.
Great. So what talking points is Min really going to want to focus on today? What are his biggest?
I know he's going to want to hit on government spending. I know that's been a big issue. His idea of decriminalizing marijuana usage and policy. I know he's going to want to go over all his policies today.
It seems like something we can all get behind, definitely. And then if you could tell an undecided voter one thing, what would it be?
Just go with your gut. Go what you think is best, and I vote for what you think is going to be better for the country and for yourself.
Great. Kayla Mungia, ladies and gentlemen.
So next up, we'll get a little bit more into the Democratic side. Again, going back and forth, kind of what we started off with our primary debates when we first started this long journey about a month and a half ago. And one of the first ones that we talked to at that first primary debate was Luca Lafata-Hornillos. We're going to see him here today. Of course, originally a nominee going for the presidential nominee for the Democrats, and he is going to be the Secretary of State if Cade Preister is able to take this one home.
So, like Jaden was saying, you were one of the first people we talked to. You're one of the candidates that's probably been preparing the longest for your running. Do you see your current position as Secretary of State nomination as a victory for the Democrats, or do you feel, does it hurt to not get the nomination the way you would have liked to hope about a month and a half ago?
I think that it really is a victory for the Democrats, and I'm just glad to be helping. I had to ask myself in those final days before Super Tuesday, where can I do the most good? Where can I help the most people? And where am I going to be best suited? And what role am I going to play as this election concludes? And Cade Preister approached me with a deal to be Secretary of State and to help him win, and together all of us are going to do great things.
So, with Cade saying he's going to do great things, we're still, I feel like the people are still a little bit in the dark about Cade's policies. A lot of his engagement has just been crowd engagement based on being entertaining. Do you think in this debate today he's going to open up on more about his policies, or he's going to continue with the showmanship that's kind of won people over thus far?
I really think it's going to be the best of both worlds. Over the past week, we've been really hammering down these policies and refining the platform and making sure that today's debate is a perfect mix of knowing what you're doing and having the right words to say and the right and being able to answer the questions correctly, but then also still having that crowd engagement to be able to show the voters that you are the best candidate and that you will care for them.
So why is he the best candidate? What does he have that the Win campaign does not?
Cade Preister is really just a man of the people, plain and simple, and he's very open to other people's ideas, and he brought me along for the ride and took all my input, and this dream team that we've created on Preister for Progress is really something special. And in terms of why Cade personally is the best candidate is because he is caring, he is thoughtful, he's an extremely hard worker, and he will do anything to make sure that the people of this country are served the way that they need to be served.
All right, Luca Lafata, everybody. Thank you.
All right, so looking now once again at the Republican side, a little bit of a late push for Min Win, being able to bring our next guest here on the show, Ahmad Kubashi, the Secretary of State for Min Win's campaign. Of course, if they're able to win it here in this one, it's been a long campaign. It's been a lot of big pushes that Min has been able to squeak by. I don't want to say squeak by, but be able to find a lot of openings when they need to. And it's really all come down to this debate and all come down to really today's grouping and these next 4 days' push to help Min Win able to get this campaign. He's had a lot of open time with the easy win, and even a secondary, really a town hall really that we saw in that second primary debate. Another easy open win there in the national convention, and a little bit of an alibi, or excuse me, not an alibi, a push for them to see if Min can win this one, depending if they're able to see a little bit more entertainment. So, Will Christiansen.
So, Ahmad, as a candidate, what do you think Min's biggest strengths are? What makes him most appealing to voters?
In my opinion, I think Min's biggest strength is the fact that his policy is great, and as well as he's very convincing and very comfortable candidate. He seems very confident all the time, especially when you see him up on that stage, and especially when he's speaking with you in person. He seems like he knows what he's doing. He's a candidate who's comfortable being on the stage. He's comfortable taking on that pressure, and he has no qualms about being president of the United States.
I would definitely agree. I think Min's background does definitely help him with his stage presence, and I think that there's a lot of value in stage presence as we're going through these debates. Just because the way that you're portraying your message carries probably just as much weight as the actual message itself. So I think that's definitely one of the strongest facets of his campaign. So as Secretary of State, sort of talk a little bit about your role on Min's campaign. What sort of things are you doing to prepare him for this election?
So with Min's campaign, as his Secretary of State, I am a little bit of an outside pick, as most people see. My role the entire time was to bring a different opinion and to show Min the other side, as well as to attract those middle voters who are kind of on the fence, to show them that Min isn't all about just one thing. He isn't all about the conservative side. He also has a middle ground where he's willing to meet you, where he can talk to you about those policies and where he can change up a few things.
Because you're a Democrat, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I am running also for Congress as a Democrat. So
great. So incorporating these more Democratic people into his team, I think, is a really strong thing for the Min campaign. So hopefully that'll attract some voters going forward.
Yeah, that's definitely been the recent push for the Min campaign going forward. And looking at the Democratic side now, I mean, we've seen so much of Kate Preister that really both sides have been the entertainment value is what has mattered the most here in this campaign. And looking now, talking with communications, I mean, we've been talking so long here in this campaign, just back and forth between the two different groups. And Luke Steiner talked to Lauren Gieselman, the communications director for Kate Preister.
Okay, so you're Cade's communications director. Cade's been a Democrat through this whole thing, but I know you started in Missouri independent. What drew you to ultimately join the Preister campaign now with a pretty prominent role as starting as an independent? Was it a lack of support for the Win campaign, or did you more just gravitate towards Preister's policies?
I just believe that Preister is a president for the people. He really takes the time to get to listen to his supporters. And I was originally on Noelle Abel's campaign running for Senate. I was her campaign manager. And Kate and her both endorsed one another, so I just really got to know him through that and his policies. And I just think he is able to, he'll be able to draw the moderate voters over pretty well.
So, as communications director, what have you done to support Cade in preparing for this campaign and really get your candidate ready to speak on the debate stage today?
We have an ad ready to play, and he really strengthened his foreign policy, and I think he'll be able to impress the audience with that.
Okay, look forward to it. Thank you so much.
So now looking once again on the Min side of things, Attorney General Claire Bonnet.
So, Claire, what has been the plan for flipping the independent or Democratic votes? Because I feel like going into this, that's one of the biggest things that you guys have needed to focus on, just because of sheer numbers.
Yeah, the numbers at first were concerning, but after communication and talking with our team and looking at every state individually, we really feel like we have a good chance. And Min is getting out there, talking to voters, talking about his policies, and really making his presence known to the average citizen everywhere.
Yeah, that's super important, definitely. So talk a little bit about your role on Min's campaign. How have you been helping him prepare and just for this debate?
Yeah, I've been with Min for a while. We've really been communicating on all of our policies and our back and forth. But I also have different viewpoints than Min. So I'm here to challenge him on some of his policies, and I think we, as a team, really balance each other out well.
Definitely. I think that is one of your team's biggest strengths, is its diversity. I think that does carry a lot of weight going forward.
I don't see a lot of that quite on the other side.
Yeah, I don't either. It's pretty much all Democratic on that side, but I think you guys doing this is definitely
Yeah,
very good.
maybe a little more compromise over there.
Yeah, with that, a big opportunity to talk about as well. But now we're going to talk to really the chief of staff for both sides, both the Min Win as well as Cade Price, your campaign. And really, these are the people that have seen the most and the most insight on both ends for both Cade Price and Min Win. Now looking once again for Cade Price campaign, Jack Winfrey.
So you've been head-to-head, you and Peter Collins, leading the candidates, both for Democrats and Republicans. Why shouldn't people vote for Min? What's weakest about his stances? What's weakest about his personality? Why shouldn't they vote for him?
Well, I just really think that Cade is by far the most likable candidate in this race. I think he really has a much better involvement than Min Win, and I think that he listens to his supporters better than Min Win. Also, the Win campaign has been involved in many more, like, I guess you could say, like, scandals than the Price campaign. We really ran a clean campaign, I believe, as opposed to, I remember there was a time when the Win campaign was accused of taking bribes and stuff. So I just think that Cade is the most trusted candidate in this race.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So now looking at the men's sides, we're kind of having to wrap this one up quickly here. Looking now at the chief of staff for the Min Win campaign, who's been close all throughout this campaign, Peter Collins.
So, Peter, if you guys end up winning this election, hopefully, what is first on your docket when you guys take office? What's first on your list to do?
So I think that first things first, we're going to try and take a look at government spending and our tax plan. Shift some things around and try and work with what we've got in a more efficient way.
Nice. And then, what do you think what are Min's most appealing qualities for voters?
I would definitely say all of his policies, considering Cade hasn't had a lot of substance in a lot of his debates. But specifically, I'd say his foreign policy and his tax plans are his strengths.
Great. Good to hear.
Thank you so much to all the guests that we've had here today, here on the WNN Pre-Debate Show. We're going to take a quick break here on WNN. Once we come back, we get you guys back to the actual debate here today. We'll start off with a vice presidential debate, Samantha Manhart and Caitlin Munguia.
family. The debate is yours.
I'd like to welcome both of you to the stage tonight. We really appreciate you showing up today and giving the voters your kind of last-minute speech or last-minute arguments so they can make an informed decision as we move on with this election. We'll start with you, Caitlin. A lot of people say that the vice president is really a meaningless position, that you don't have much but to sit there and hope the president doesn't die. Do you think that that's the true meaning of the vice president, or do you have something else in mind?
No, I think that's all we do. I mean, I've already helped out a lot with decisions and planning, especially for this event, and I think I've helped a pretty fair amount with executing plans. I also think that I'll be a good choice to implement women's voice in the campaign, and I think that it'll make a huge change.
Okay, thank you. When President Eisenhower was asked a question about a decision that his vice president helped him make, he couldn't come up with one. I think it's interesting you said that you're already helping with that. Can you think of a specific decision you've helped with?
I mean, so I'm from the state of California, and I've really helped with what to do within that state for our campaign, because it's really crucial that we, hopefully win California. I've helped decide just things we've offered to the state and what to rally and say and hopefully get a vote.
Samantha, I'd like to know the same thing from you. Do you think you're going to have a large role in your administration, or are you just someone kind of waiting in the wings?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for sure, Kate is the backbone and face of the campaign and presidency, but what you don't see is like everything that goes on behind the scenes is teamwork. And so everything that goes on air or that is presented, we've all collaborated to make that. And Kate does an awesome job at allowing me, other cabinet members, other campaign members to, be involved in everything. And so I do see my role as very collaborative. I've already contributed ideas. I've prepared and performed my duties, and along with him, I do want to make a better America.
You referred to Mr. Chrysler as a backbone of your campaign. What's one thing that you admire about Kate?
Well, I just met Kate, basically. But for not knowing him for very long, there is a lot I admire about him. He has great attention to detail. He, like I talked about, was very collaborative. He communicates very well. He's very respectful of my ideas and other people's ideas. He works well with his peers. He's great at delegating tasks. I always know what I have to do and when. And he's got a lot of confidence in himself, and that he can do the job well, and a lot of confidence in me too, which I think is very admirable.
Same question to you. What's something that you admire about your running mate?
I admire Min's determination and his just ability to put his face out there and get his word out there and not be afraid of what other people think of his views. We've seen from his ads how determined he is and hardworking he is.
Okay. I think it's time to get into the issues. Are you ladies okay with that? Okay, let's get into the issues. One of the cultural issues that's come up every year since the 1970s is abortion. It seems that your guys' campaigns are in lockstep, at least for the early stage of the presidency or of the pregnancy. But I'd like you to talk about late-term abortions. Do you believe these can or should be restricted? We'll start with you.
I believe that abortion should be okay in the first and second trimester, but I do believe that trimester abortions are not as good. I think by then you should know the decision, and I think by that time you should probably just have the baby at that point. You could give it up for adoption, but I do believe that first and second trimester abortions are okay.
Samantha.
Well, our campaign believes in abortion following the precedent of Roe v. Wade, which is first, very little restriction. Second, a little bit more restriction, but it's not. It's more like we'll inform you of, like, at the clinic they inform you of different things and they may contact a parent. And then the third is restrictive. And so that's what you're asking about. I think that there are certain circumstances where abortion should be okay in the third trimester. I mean, some people may not even know that they're pregnant at that point and still need an abortion. Or, you know, it could threaten the life of the mother, in which case I think that that is very necessary.
Yeah, go ahead.
I agree with Samantha with the third trimester. Like, I think there are exceptions to the third trimester. Obviously, if it's going to harm the mother or potentially the baby, then yeah, an abortion would be allowed. But I do think that there should be specific restrictions on the third trimester.
Speaking of specific restrictions, several states have passed laws that have said that abortion should be outlawed if you were getting an abortion specifically for race or gender or ability level that's been detected in the child to be. Democrats have largely pushed back against these. Would you be in favor of such legislation, and do you think that Mr. Chrysler would be?
Yes, I absolutely want to push back on those. I don't think that's really fair at all. I'd like to hear what Caitlin has to say.
I don't think that's ethical at all. I think that a pushback would be necessary. I think those are very, as you said, unfair. I don't think that's right at all.
Okay. So, considering views on abortion, let's move this over into another topic with health, and that is COVID-19. There has been a lot of rhetoric thrown around by both sides, calling out hypocrisy of the other, with the catchphrase "my body, my choice" being thrown around, accusing Republicans of saying it's your body, your choice now, but not with abortion, or Democrats, it's your body, your choice with abortion, but not when it's vaccines. When is it your body and when is it your choice concerning COVID-19 vaccinations?
I think it's the same for both abortion and COVID. I mean, I think if you want a vaccine, you should get one. But if you can be forced to get one. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's ethical at all. I think goes exactly against your body, your choice. I mean, I think it should be up to you and what you want to do.
The difference with vaccination and abortion is that, you know, if I choose to get an abortion, it's not going to hurt Caitlin. If I'm not vaccinated, I could potentially infect Caitlin. And so I think that's where the difference is. You know, I might, you know, cause someone else to die. And with my abortion, that's just affecting me. So I think that's the difference.
I think making a law that makes everyone get a vaccine is wrong. I think you can't force someone to put something into their body that they don't want.
You know, at some point I agree with that, but, you know, to go to college I have to get this, and this vaccine. You know, my dad was telling me about when their kindergarten class had to get the polio vaccine and they were walked down to the nurse's office and in a line they were just injected. They didn't get a choice. But, you know, it's so politicized today that, you know, I just think it has to, you know, come down to your decision. And you have to understand that there's a respect thing with getting a vaccination. If you know, it means like you're potentially not hurting anyone else, and so.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic then. Samantha, currently the world is facing several international situations that must be addressed, such as the Iranian nuclear program, North Korean aggression, Chinese cybersecurity, Russian aggression, only to name a few. What international problem do you see as the highest priority for our nation to address?
Well, Cade first and foremost believes in peace through diplomacy. He wants an open relationship between Russia and China, and he wants to slowly denuclearize North Korea and Iran. We will have no preemptive strikes, so that kind of answers the question. We will not really address any single one of those countries. We will just, you know, slowly open relationships with them, and slowly denuclearize them to protect Americans, especially Americans on the East Coast, close to North Korea, and also our allies over there, like Japan and South Korea.
Would you be willing to let us in on part of your plan to denuclearize? How do you plan on doing this?
You know, I think that I could discuss with Cade more about that plan specifically, but we don't want to rush into things. We just want to slowly get that done.
I assume there was no pun intended with rushing into it. Joking, never mind. Okay. What about you? Foreign policy, same question.
I think that all these threats are very, very important and very significant. I don't think there's one that's more important than the other, and that should be priority over the other. I think, like she said, that we should go into it with the same amount of need, like, to be there. We've talked about, me and Nick have talked about potentially working with, like, the Secretary of Defense and increasing things such as, like, naval presence and military presence in those allied countries to protect them and protect us from those threats.
I'd like to talk to you about that, some of those meetings actually. One thing that people look at, presidents, is choosing their secretary of defense, secretary of state. Two questions here. Are you going to do that collaboratively with men? Have you guys already had those discussions? And do you think that the Republican Party has sufficient people to fill all those roles and run a functional and safe and healthy government?
Min and I have not talked about doing a collaborative agreement, but I think that's something we could definitely talk about. And I think that's something that could probably be achieved. I think that would be beneficial. I think we do have pretty good people. Our team is basically half Democrat, half Republican, and I think that's pretty good for us. I think that's a good viewpoint from each side.
How about you? Do you guys have plans for Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State?
Our Secretary of State is Luca. Secretary of Defense, I'm not quite sure at the moment. I think we have most of our cabinet members except for one, I believe. But yeah, we're beginning to delegate tasks to everyone, and you can see that slowly we're all, building the teamwork and working together.
Very good. We'd like to take a little bit. We don't have commercials here today, do we?
Not for this one.
Okay, no commercials.
We got about 5 minutes.
That's okay. No, let's take a little bit of a lighter tone here. Something we'd like to do with vice presidents, to ask you to use your imagination, maybe to give everyone a different vision of your running mate. If your running mate, if Cade were to be a movie character or television character, who do you think he would be and why?
I kind of was just, so in math class the other day, Jordan was showing me an ad she created, and I'm not going to say what it's about because it might be played, but immediately I just kind of thought of, I imagined Cade as Will Ferrell, because I think that he's very confident in his personality. He's funny, he's really easy to like, so,
You think Will Ferrell?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. What do you think about Min?
Mine's not as comical, but I think Min really reminds me of 007, James Bond, for his dramatic TV presence and, the fighting and guns specifically with Min. I think he really reminds me of 007.
Okay, so we have 007 and a host of Will Ferrell characters. I actually think that's great watching your campaigns. I think that shows both of your insight a little bit into your candidates. But it begs the question, is Cade going to take this that serious? I know we've had a lot of laughs from Cade. Is he capable of taking this serious?
Oh yeah, of course. Yes, he is.
Did you want to explain about his seriousness in any way, or?
I mean, this little personality he's been putting on. I mean, it is him, but I think he's just campaigning. It's part of the job. He
he's going to do great at his job. He delegates tasks to everyone. He knows a lot about what he's talking about, and if he doesn't, he finds other people that know and that can give him advice on things. And he's got a very strong cabinet coming up, so he will be amazing.
Okay, and then how about Min? He's got the 007 persona, okay. But can he relate to people in the way that Preissner has been able to relate to the people? Is he capable to do that with the voters?
Yeah, I think that's totally possible. I think with his not new team, but new addition, I mean, me especially, I think that he will appeal to more people and he'll have that way of relating to people and having that funnier side and not being so serious all the time.
Okay. Can we talk about gun violence since you brought up weapons? This is something that people have accused your candidate of not being realistic or not being serious about gun control and gun safety. Are we in danger? Are we going to be in danger as a country if we have a mid-presidency?
No, I don't believe so. I think that there are people around him, and I don't think that his views are necessarily that there should be no restrictions on guns. I don't think that that's true at all. But I know mine especially are there should be certain restrictions on guns, and I think that there should be background checks, and I think there should be training and another process that you need to go through to be able to have and conceal a gun. I think that's crucial to our safety as citizens.
Gun violence. Are we in danger if we have a mid-presidency?
Maybe a little. I am a little afraid of men. Well, I'm not afraid of them. I'm not, but the gun videos, they're scary. And I think we have some of the same ideals as Caitlin just said. I mean, we want to make it harder to get a gun, more background checks. There needs to be psychological tests. And I have a lot of family in Vegas, so I always think about the Vegas shooting there. You know, a man obtained 27 assault weapons. That's insane. You know, those types of things shouldn't be able to happen in America. So.
Okay. To kind of spin this the other way with people that have had criticisms of Cade, I heard one teacher say, that dude's really funny, but he doesn't know policy. Do you think he doesn't know policy? Are we in danger of having a president who's ignorant of policy if we have a Preissner presidency?
No, not at all. You know, like I said too, if he doesn't know certain things, he asks for advice of other people. You know, but I think he's perfectly capable of creating his policies. And when I was filling out, you know, my sheets for this, there were some things where, you know, I wanted to ask Cade about exactly what he thought, and he knew right away. These are my policies, and this is what I'd like you to say. So.
Okay, and how about you? Do you think Cade knows enough about policy to be an effective leader?
I don't think Cade's ignorant to policy, but I think that he just doesn't convey his policies in the right way. I don't think he's shared enough of what he knows and what he plans to do. I know a lot of people have said that they would want to vote for Cade, but just didn't know what he stood for, and that's why a lot of people wanted to vote for Jimmy's campaign. And I think that's something that they're going to have to work on to secure those voters.
Okay, just talking to my producer here. Do you want a closing statement? One more question, then closing statements. Okay, great. Okay, the Supreme Court has become very politicized in recent years. Do you have any plans to changing the Supreme Court dramatically? I know there were a lot of Democrat candidates hoping to change the system in dramatic ways. What's your guys' plan in dealing with the Supreme Court?
Well, we think it would be really hard to change the way justices are chosen. And so we think it's fair that the president gets to choose gets to appoint these justices. But it's obvious that the judiciary branch needs to be less politicized. You know, and Cade promises to do this by appointing moderates, and I think that's kind of a fair compromise there.
Same question to you.
I think the way judges are appointed, like you said, is I think it's pretty fair. It's basically at random. You never know when a justice is going to retire or when they pass away. You just never know what's going to happen to them. And I think that's I think it's fair, but I think that there should be certain things done to limit justices. I think that having a term limit potentially would be beneficial. I think that having fresher faces and people with more modern, progressive, and moderate views would be good for the Supreme Court.
Okay, it's now time for your closing statement. I just want to give you 30 seconds to give your last soundbite to the people of America of why your ticket is the one they should vote for on Election Day.
Well, to wrap up, I just want to briefly summarize kind of what I spoke about. The only thing I got to get to was that we would really like to encourage diplomatic relationships with other countries to ensure our safety and peace of the world. And I didn't talk about anything. We have other plans that have to do with a universal health care plan, but we will still, private healthcare providers will still be an option, and it will create sort of like a competing market so that the people who have these private healthcare providers, they will actually get benefits from that. Yeah, we have plans to catch the economy back up, and yeah, he'll be up here soon, so I want to wish him good luck.
Okay, and Caitlin, same thing to you.
I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity. I want to thank Lucas for arranging all of it, and I want to thank Peter and Min for helping me prepare and just helping me and having me join the campaign. I think that was, thank you. I really think that we can do good for this country, and I think that we can do good for all Americans, no matter the party. And I also just want to have a reminder to get to the polls on Tuesday. Your vote is your voice, and your voice matters. Thank you.
Could we please have a round of applause?
All right, with that, we're going to have about 5 minutes in between these two debates, okay? So during the course of the 5 minutes, you guys can talk and relax and listen while we get things kind of situated and everything. But also, please go on to either the email, we're going to open up the accepted responses. Give me 1 second here.
That's they mad for what? They mad.
Guys. We got plenty of security now. So, Mr. Bramley, we'll turn the debate over to you for opening statements, and then we'll get our first question, which will come from Isaac Persky. So, go ahead, Mr. Bramley.
All right, welcome, Mr. Bond, Mr. Farrell. Thank you so much. Sorry. Kate, thank you so much for coming. I want to congratulate both of you on having made it this far and having two wonderful, intelligent vice presidential candidates that really informed us on a lot of your opinions and stances just a moment ago. So thank you so much for that, for both of you. But today it's about you, and it's about a debate. We want to keep this fair. Feel free to engage with each other. We want to keep it clean. We want to keep it civil. We don't want this to be too much like real life. There we go. So we will start with a bit of a question from myself, I guess, and then we'll move on to questions from your peers. I just want to hear your opening statement, Kate, why you think you're the man for the job and why you should be the next president of the United States.
Well, a lot of my policies may be questioned for the lack thereof, but I promise you that I do hold a lot of policies, and I brought in a lot of people like Jimmy Stacy, Luca Lafata, a lot of people, Jack James, Jed Beats, and they've just really helped me find my policies and know what I want to do for America, and I want to make sure, let you know that they're concrete, and I will make progress in America.
Thank you, sir. Then, same question. Why are you the man for the job? Why should you be the next president of the United States?
First and foremost, I want to thank Kate here for sitting here with me today. I want to make something abundantly clear, seeing as this is the last debate. My beliefs have not been copied and pasted from those of my cabinet, the media, or the party. They've been formed through extensive examination of issues in America, and because of that, I think that they will benefit Americans, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents all the same.
All right, thank you very much. We would now like to go to Mr. Isaac Persky for our first question in our town hall debate.
Okay, so in the recent social spending bill going through Congress, the vision and dental coverage for Medicare was taken out. So do you guys agree with this change? And if so, why do you believe that we shouldn't give senior citizens these benefits when we have the money, technology, and resources to do so?
And you're directing this at both candidates, is that right, Mr. Persky? Okay. Either one of you like to tackle that first?
Well, I definitely think that if we have the funds and we have the resources to do it, I think that the government's job is to make every citizen in America feel safe and make their life easier for them, and just provide support to everyone that we can. I do support some sort of Medicare, Medicaid for senior citizens 65 or older, and I don't believe that those benefits should be rescinded. Now, I do not support the idea of having universal or single-payer health care. We've already tried government-provided health care here in America. For example, I want to point to the Department of Veterans Affairs. This government agency is charged with the medical care of our veterans who sustain wounds in combat. Now, the VA is the second largest government agency in America, second only to the military itself. They have over 1,100 medical centers and over 350,000 employees across the country. Now, if you ask any of the 9 million veterans who rely on their care what their care is like, they will tell you it's an absolute catastrophe. In 2013, we had over 600,000 veterans waiting an average of 125 days to see a doctor. And any veteran who would like to appeal their VA process, that process can take up to 5 years. So why does government healthcare not at least universal healthcare? It's because the government was never designed to handle such a complex issue like healthcare. That's like having the Burke scheduling. That's like trying to fit modular scheduling of our school into Burke scheduling. It doesn't work. And that's not to say that some government healthcare isn't good, but we should examine how much it costs to provide universal healthcare. The Mercatus Center at George Mason University
give you about 30 more seconds. We want to
They
get
included that universal health care would cost us $4 trillion more every year. The federal government only makes $4 trillion a year, so even if the government doubled all of their taxes, sales tax, income tax, economic tax, we still wouldn't have enough to pay for universal health care.
These countries around the world that are already developed already have universal healthcare systems up and running. And my universal healthcare system, I don't think is the one that Min-Win is referencing. Mine is more minimal, so that it covers just basic things like doctor's appointments and just things that every human should have, so that private healthcare can still strive, but they can also, it also makes the market a lot more competitive. And this is so that they will provide more benefits and just better treatment to their customers, so that America is just a safer place and that you don't have to worry if you get injured or get wounded.
Mr. President, that sounds a lot like the Canadian medical care system, is that correct?
It is similar, yes.
So why is it that we have 80,000 to 100,000 Canadians every year coming across the border to seek our medical care because they can't find good care in their government system?
This may be because we have some of the best doctors in the world, but I do think that every person in America should definitely have at least doctor's appointments and at least a checkup so that they know what's wrong with their body. And I think that also,
Okay. Mrs. Amy Stoops, we have our next question.
All right, I would like to direct this question to both candidates, turning more to climate change now. As I'm sure you are both aware, climate change is the single greatest threat to humanity itself that we currently face. So I want to know from both of you what your plan to save this planet and to save all of us is.
I want to interject here for a moment just for clarity. This is a member of your cabinet, is that right? Okay, just making sure.
I asked this as a concerned citizen, Mr. President.
No, thank you so much. It's like going to Obama Girl during the Obama-Clinton debates, right? Okay, no, very good. Would you like, actually, I'll let you go first if you'd like. You went first last time. Go ahead.
At heart, I myself am a conservationist. I think that we should make strides to leave this world better than we found it for our children and their children. I am for the reduction of carbon emissions and funding efforts to move more industrial practices to more efficient and greener practices. Now, there are proponents in the United States that would like to see the U.S. in a global climate pact like the Paris Climate Agreement we saw a few years ago. But what we saw with that were nations like China and Russia not holding out their end of the bargain. Those two nations account for a massive portion of carbon emissions in the world, but they didn't abide by the regulations set forth. What we saw was our economy suffer because we restricted industry without half the world not restricting their own industry. So why should we be beholden to the rules of other nations? We have different people, different lifestyles, and different needs. I think if we're going to set forth climate change legislation, it should be our Congress forming bills based off of the needs of our people, and we should abide by our own rules. Mr. President.
I definitely think America should be the leading force in this in combating climate change. But I think that every single country needs to pitch in. I think that we need to have, with our open relationships with China and Russia, we need to make, with our allies, we need to make our oceans cleaner and reduce carbon emissions. We need to tap into this cleaner nuclear energy, and we can create jobs through solar and wind power and do all these things. And I think that we just haven't taken advantage of it yet, and that's what I'll do in office. There's also something for cleaning our oceans. There's a U-shaped plastic catching system made by Boyan Slat in 2013 that worked very well to clean up almost 95% of the plastic. And I think that if we use this and we put it on a bigger scale and we actually put our minds to it, we can very much solve a lot of the issues going on in our oceans.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Stoops, we'd like to go to our next question.
So gun violence is a really big problem in the United States, especially with mass shootings. What are both of your plans for addressing that issue?
Go ahead, Mr. President.
Well, gun control, I don't claim to be an expert on gun control at all, but I do know that it is definitely a very big issue in America with a lot of way too many mass shootings happening around the country. And I believe that we should have extensive background checks on handguns and semi-automatic rifles and mental screenings just to make sure that, and different qualifications, just to make sure that every person that owns a firearm or has the power to take away an American life, just so that we know that it's safe in their hands. Because especially with assault weapons, 16% of mass shootings involve assault weapons, but 25% of mass shooting deaths came from shootings with assault weapons, and 76% of injuries came from shootings with assault weapons. And I think this is a very big issue that we need to prevent.
Would you like to respond?
Mr. Professor, I have two separate questions for you. They'll be quick. The first one, you want stronger background checks, correct? Correct. Now, since you want stronger background checks, could you please explain to me the current process in buying a gun here in Douglas County if you don't think they're strong enough? I'm sure if you want stronger ones, you know what they are, right?
As I prefaced before, I'm not an expert on buying guns. I just understand that it is a very big issue, and I think that we should definitely try to prevent these mass shootings, and I think that we can do it.
Well, just so everyone here knows, and I'll quickly explain this, you have to go to the city police department, pass a background check, their background check, and buy a purchasing permit, then go to the gun store, pick your gun, and then conduct an NICS or FBI background check, national background check, and you take that gun and the permit you have to the county, the sheriff's office, and then register that with them. So it seems like a massive process, right? Now, let's look at something. Over 70% of guns used in crimes were one, stolen, or two, illegally acquired in some other manner, which completely defeats the purpose of background checks. And to your point about gun violence, in 2016, the FBI conducted a study. They concluded that in that 1 year, there were about 11,000 homicides. Only 3.5% of those were committed with rifles of any kind, not just assault rifles, but any rifle. And let's look at, in the same year, they concluded that there were an estimated 500,000 to 3 million instances where a firearm is used in self-defense. So 3 million self-defense instances, is that really comparable to 11,000 homicides? I would also like to add that...
Go ahead and wrap this up so we can let Mr. President.
Okay, well, those are my main points.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. President.
Well, I think we take firearms out of the equation and we just keep them safe and locked up in America and make sure that they're not used in any sort of violent way. I think that we can definitely prevent a lot more of these, because if there's no guns in anyone's hands, besides the ones that are especially safe through background checks, I think that it'll definitely prevent these shootings.
Sir, London has more murders per capita than New York City, and you can't get a gun in the UK. They can't get guns, but they have higher murders. Why, because of that, why do you think stronger gun restrictions will reduce violent crime?
Well, just because they have a lot of knives in the UK, I'd say. But I think I still stand, and I think it will help America.
All right, thank you very much. Mrs. Stutz, you have another personal question.
Okay. What is your opinion on movements such as BLM in the LGBT community, and are you willing to back their voices and concerns? And what will you do to ensure that all people in this country feel safe, accepted, and equal? And I've asked one of you candidates before, and you said it was a cultural issue and it was not one of your concerns. Has your opinion changed on this?
Go ahead.
I personally am a staunch believer in individual freedom. I don't believe it's the government's place to dictate who someone loves or who someone marries. Now, what will I do to prevent discrimination based on things like sexual orientation, race, or gender? Well, let's look at what we already have. We have the Equal Employment and Opportunity Commission, or the EEOC. This agency is charged with the handling and rectifying of discrimination in the workplace. Now, recently, just last month in October, their agents handled a situation where a supervisor in an industrial manufacturer was found discriminating against minorities and making sexual advances onto women. And clearly that's wrong. That shouldn't happen in the workplace. Now, because of the EEOC's investigation, the company was court ordered to pay out $93,000 to the affected employees. We have systems in place to protect Americans, and it should stay that way.
LGBTQ rights are very close to me because I have a mother that is pansexual, but I can say that they should definitely be protected and they shouldn't be denied service or discriminated against in the workplace or anything like that, of that matter. And I think as a white president, white man in the office, I think all I can do for the African American community is listen and try to better the community to the best of my ability and work with them closely and make sure that it's just safer for them and that they feel appreciated and secure.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have another question?
Do you think that you are a good representative for our student body, and are your policies good for like our school, and why?
Yes, I think my policies will create a better America and a better West Side. I think that everyone can use a little bit of lightheartedness, I guess, in the White House, and I think I can bring that to America while also having solid policies and being serious about certain issues. I think that we also need that kind of good side because it does get very dark and not very happy in politics a lot of times.
I agree with Cade on the lightheartedness of government here in school. I think I have a really good perspective on a lot of the student body, cross-country track, wrestling, show car, swim. A lot of these things I do are able to put me in positions where I can relate to the student body best. Different parts or different groups. I think I have the ability to reach out to them, understand what their issues are, what they care, and then foremost address them here.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have one more question before commercial breaks?
Between the two of you, who do you think would win in a fight?
Well, I think I definitely have the reach on Min, but he's a quick dude. So like, I think maybe if he got quick punches in, I think he definitely. But if I got the first hit, I think I could probably take him.
Just a question: how much do you weigh?
I weigh. That's a personal question, man. But I'm happy to answer. I weigh 210 pounds.
Okay, so 210 pounds, and I weigh 135. So that's quite the difference, especially if we hit the ground traveling. Now, if it was a Nerf gun fight, well, that'd be a little different.
I mean, I'm training from South Carolina citizen Ryan Zadisko, so I don't know about you.
That's fair. I don't have to speak to that. Thank you.
Okay. Let's be honest, we have not. Okay. The students, do we have another question from the audience?
This is for both candidates. How do you plan to reform the education system as it is now?
Go ahead, Min.
I believe that the current system we have that was put in place under the Obama administration, the Common Core system, I think is very outdated. I think standardized testing, though it has its place, isn't the answer for everything. I'm sure you guys know what I mean by standardized testing. I also would like to expand the arts programs. Here we have show choir, choir, band, orchestra. I think that these things offer opportunities to students that can't be found anywhere else. I think it's a great vessel that students can use to express their desires, their interests, and that's where I would start.
I agree with that a lot. With that, our system is geared more towards logical thinkers, and I think that's great. And I think it's amazing that they have that opportunity to succeed. But I also think that more creative thinkers need to be nurtured and need to be. They've been neglected for far too long, and I think that we need to provide a lot more paths to success for them. And another thing I want to speak on is that 36% of people with disabilities are set to graduate. This is an absurd number, and I think it should definitely be a lot higher. A lot of the students, even here, only have really opportunities in PE classes or classes like this, and I think that we need to provide a lot broader spectrum of things that everyone can enjoy, like classes like math, science, places where everyone can learn. And I think that we just need to all be on the same playing field. And I think it would just be better if we put our back and forth and that.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to ask one more question. No, yes.
Are we ready?
One more question before we go to break. Oh, good. Okay, here we go.
All right, so just
Just to be clear here, we have the head of the Republican Party, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so this question is just for Kate Priester first. And if you want to comment on it, you can.
Is it the plastic tax?
No, sir. I've got more questions for you. All right. So, as you know, I mean, everybody in here, a lot of people in here drive, and we all know that going to the pump, gas prices are going up. In fact, it's estimated that gas prices throughout the 50 states have risen by around 50 to 56% over the past year. And in addition to this, not only is gasoline prices rising, but also natural gas prices that in the Midwest we use to keep our homes warm during the winter. It's estimated that natural gas prices have risen by 30%. Kate, you have proposed the most aggressive policies towards fossil fuels. What are you going to do to make sure that, especially people who are working class and have tighter budgets, they're able to keep their homes warm and keep their cars fueled moving forward?
As president, I don't have a super big hold on gas prices and natural gas and things like that, but I do plan to pump our economy up and make sure that we start gaining a lot more money than we're losing. And I'll do this with my 2 gram plastic tax that you denounced, but I'll also do it by, like I said, legalizing recreational use of marijuana. And I also want to strengthen the IRS and make sure that the rich pay their fair share of taxes based on their assets.
Would you like to respond to that, Mr. Wynn?
I would. So, as it currently stands, inflation is on the rise. It went from 3.4% to 4.2% in the last 12 months, and is expected to jump another 2.5% in the next 12 months. So what would I do to jumpstart the economy? Well, first of all, I'd cut back on spending. We spend way too much. I'd streamline that process, and with the excess money we have, divert that with the approval of Congress, of course, divert that money to jumpstart the economy, specifically offering small businesses subsidies and offering tax breaks to both businesses and individuals alike.
Okay, I'd like to thank you both for a very entertaining first part of this debate. We're just going to go to a commercial break, but I appreciate it for what you have. But we are going to go to a commercial break, so just get comfortable and watch some good commercials.
Much like every other American, I wake up, get ready, and head out to continue my life. I understand what the average American experiences every day, whether that be at work, at school, or taking care of our responsibilities at home. I know what the families of this country need, and I know what I must do to take care of them. I am a candidate for the people, and a candidate for you.
Stephen.
Liar!
No!
You're with him! You brought him here to kill me!
No!
Let her go, Anakin! Let her go! You turned her against me! You have done that yourself! You will not take her from me! Your anger and your lust for power have already done that. I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire. Your new empire? Don't make me kill you. Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy! If you're not with me, then you're my enemy. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. I'll do what I must. You will try. It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground! You underestimate my power! Don't try it!
Let's see what my political opponent is doing on Twitter. Oh, what's this? Man, I can do that stuff too. Just wait and see.
Cut. We need a smaller pool.
Wait, safety first.
And remember, vote Chrysler for progress.
Hello, America. This is the most nefarious criminal of the century, bro. I've done many bad things in my day, but this bad is still in the moon was. It is nothing compared to Jay Preissler's attempt to steal the election. Connect the dots, America. Preissler's father counted the votes. See who won the primary. And Preissler's father will count the votes. See who wins the general. So I beg of you, America, don't let Preissler steal the election like they stole my children.
Welcome back. We just saw some very entertaining commercials, and as we're heading towards the next round of questions from your esteemed colleagues, I did want to take 1 minute to ask you guys about your campaigns. How has that process been for you? Do you have a good team? How has the process been as you've been crafting your message for the American people? Mr. Christian.
Well, it's been tough. It's definitely been tough with the close race with Jimmy Stacey, my soon-to-be Attorney General. But I think that we've done a great job of uniting the Democratic Party, and I think we have people from all sides, and we're just working together to really bring this one home.
Mr. Wynn.
I have an absolute lineup of studs. Peter Conn, my campaign manager, always, he makes my life a dream. Having to get all these things filled out, excuse me. Now our cabinet, which we have put together, has 6 Democrats out of 13 positions, if you believe that. I think that with those individuals being chosen for their specific positions, we'll be able to work with Congress for legislation based on the needs of both Republican and Democrat Americans.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Stutes, do you have another question from the crowd?
Okay, this one's for men. How are you going to include more women, especially when earlier in your campaign you told Carly Rizak that her brother can handle her, and you implied last week that the only reason Caitlin was your VP is because she's a woman. So how are you going to be more inclusive to women?
I'd like to remind the crowd, format today is to have no cheers in between questions or responses. Thank you very much.
Well, Noel, if you think that Caitlin is not capable of being vice president, is only up here because she's a woman, that's quite slander to her. I mean, as we saw, she was up here carrying herself, conducting herself extremely well. She's smart, well-spoken, knows exactly what she's talking about. She's not the only woman on her cabinet. So I might add also, she had a little bit of a style of speech during the convention, but still, she's very smart. They carry themselves well, and I don't think that gender is a factor in deciding who's on our cabinet and who we need to lead the country to a better place.
I don't think she was referencing her opinions. I think she was talking about your past statements.
So if we want to talk about the little Twitter board me and Carly had, I said those things in jest, and I meant to say that her brother Dominic Rizak, who is also my Secretary of Defense and my financial director, would quote unquote handle her. Now I did apologize, and I still do apologize to Carly Rizak. Those words were ill thought of. But I think Carly and I, our relationship, our friendship, didn't take any detriment. I mean, she's helping me figure out how to slow dance because I have a wedding next week, so my dance partner over there.
Okay. As we've taken an unexpected turn, let's go to the front row.
Sorry, back to serious now. The U.S. is expected to have 3 million trade jobs that are needed recently, and lo and behold, the average age of a trade worker is 55, and the average age of retirement in the U.S. is 62. What is your plan to counteract this and help trade jobs gain more workers?
If anyone didn't hear that, there was a question about the shortage in trade jobs, and especially among younger Americans, and he wanted to know what these candidates were going to do about it. Mr. President.
I think that this starts with providing more opportunities and more opportunities through college and community college, and getting your foot in the door and getting employed and helping the American economy and helping people get those jobs, because I think it's a very important industry, and I think we definitely need to help.
You know, something I think that Kate President touched on is education reform, is expansion of trades classes in our schools. A lot of us have the preconceived notion that we have to go to a 4-year college and then get a job and stick with that job for the rest of our lives.
I think that we need to offer students other options. Like here we have the welding program, woodworking, automotive classes, and all of these are pathways to having jobs in the trades. And currently, because there's a shortage of tradesmen, their salaries, they make more than the average college graduate in the six-figure range, electricians, plumbers, woodworkers, and such. So I think if we can give students the opportunity to expand their interest into things other than strictly mathematics or other sort of academia, then we'll be able to solve the problem.
All right, our next question, please. Now we're all the way to the back.
At least 30 states in the U.S. have brought up bills discluding trans students from playing sports that match the gender they identify as. What are your stances on trans students in high school playing sports with the gender they identify as?
I understand the argument that that trans students would want to play in sports that they identify as, but personally, I don't believe that is fair, specifically to female sports, right? Like we saw, the individual who holds the world record for women's lifting was born a male and transitioned after they ascended to adulthood, which gave them advantage and benefits through the amount of testosterone they had flowing and other just male traits. I don't think that is fair to women. Women have their own sports. I think they should have their own sports and be free of competition to other individuals who have a greater advantage over them biologically.
Mr. Christian.
I think it is honestly discriminatory to stop trans kids from participating in sports that they identify with. This is just because I think that everyone should, if they feel that way, then that's how they should be able to compete. And but I do think that the accolades issue, I can definitely see where people may think it is unfair. The athletes may be outraged because it is a little bit of an unfair advantage. And that's why I would like to maybe work with the programs and places that are doing these and determine the accolade systems and winning like a state title and seeing just specifically like you know what I'm saying here, like with like medals, like there's like a different kind of category or like something like that, just because it is scientifically it is very true that there's more testosterone there and there's more athletic ability. But I definitely think that they should, at the very least, be able to compete with the gender that they feel that they
Just a follow-up question on that. With Westside being one of the leaders in wrestling, do you agree with combat sports, full contact sports, wrestling, football, like that men that transition to women should be able to participate in women's sports?
I mean, yeah, we have two female football players right now, Piper Szejk and Erin Marty, and I think they've been accepted very well, and I think that any woman that wants to go out and compete for predominantly male sport is perfectly acceptable.
And the other way around.
Encouraged, should be encouraged, yeah.
The other way around wrestling. So a male that has transitioned to a female should be able to wrestle against women.
Yeah.
As a wrestler myself, I have competed against young women before. From my observations of my own matches and other matches, I would say it is not fair at all to the young girl, even though she may be technically more proficient in moves and wrestling technique. A man's strength, if you can't compete with it, if we're putting apples to apples of just they have the same technique ability, then it's not fair to the woman at all.
Men, didn't you get pinned by Jack Wimmer in 8th grade?
Yes, I did.
Okay, we've got another question here in the back.
I got a question for both candidates. What would you say your spirit animal is?
I'm gonna have to go with Will Ferrell.
Okay.
It's a close pick between John Wick and James Bond. I think.
Hold on. You just caught me.
Both of you stop. The question was, what is your spirit animal? Let's try again. We'll go with Mr. Pricer. No animal? Can't think of one.
No, I got one. I really like huskies.
That's a good one.
I like pit bulls.
I like those. Okay, let's do one more question. We've got one in the back. She looks very, very ready to ask us a question, and then we'll go to closing statements.
Okay, so your vice president's touched up on this a little bit, but what are both of your stances on abortion?
So let's make something abundantly clear. Myself, Kate, or any other candidate say to stand up here and say they will do this or that about abortion. Well, realistically, we don't have that much control over abortion. Abortion is a congressional and judicial issue. The executive branch, its job is to enforce laws. I can't stand up here and say I will do this or that. We don't have any direct control over abortion policy in the United States. Now, I want safe and legal abortions. That's what I want. But we have to realize that Texas and California are two completely different states with different people and different things they value. So I can't, in good conscience, make a blanket law that would restrict abortion in all the states because they're so different. I would personally prefer letting these states, letting their legislatures make laws based on the needs of their people because I don't know.
I think it's not my issue. It's a woman's issue. It's a woman's health issue, and I think that it just needs to be a safe option because if women don't have the safe option to receive an abortion, then mothers in a financial or just a desperate situation might resort to even worse alternatives that might harm the baby or herself. And I think it's just better to have this safe option for all women, and I don't think it should really even be a political issue. And I think it should definitely be to the end of the second trimester. And men, on yours, you said that it's up to the states. So does that mean that Texas and their 6-week policy stand with you as president?
Personally, if I had my way, I would leave the first trimester legal and then allow states to place their restrictions on the second and third trimester, barring any other exceptions such as life of the mother, rape, and incest. Of course, those 3 exceptions are what everyone wants. Now, those are my opinions. My opinions don't dictate the laws of this country. My opinions don't dictate what the Americans can do with their lives, whether that be vaccine mandates or abortion. So we should just make that abundantly clear.
Okay, with that being said, let's move on. The polls are going to be opening soon. We're days away. You guys aren't even going to do with your lives here in a little bit once this campaign's over. This is your last shot to let these people know why when they finally sit in that booth, they look at your 2 names, which one they should mark. Mr. Priester, go ahead.
I will make the White House incredibly lighthearted as well as serious, and we will get stuff done. We'll make progress in the White House. I'll make sure every one of your ideas are heard and you all have the chance to pursue happiness, no matter who you are, what your political party is. I believe in you and I believe in America. Welcome, Mr. Obama. Again, I just want to thank Mr. Pricer your first time being up here with me. Certainly, we have opposing views on many things, but at the end of the day, what are we? We're both. We're all Americans, right? We all want the same thing. We want good jobs, a good economy, happy lives, and we want to be able to take care of our families. It's because of this I stand here before you, or sitting before you, excuse me. And with the help of my bipartisan cabinet, half of it being Democrat, we, with the help of Congress, can set a concrete path towards prosperity. Love you, man.
Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've got about 3 or 4 minutes to stay in your seats. Actually,